Hi, this is Keith Coogan. You may remember me as Brad Anderson from Adventures in Babysitting, and you are listening to Pop Culture with Pat. Nobody leaves this place without singing the blues.
That's right.
I've got the babysitting blues. Baby, baby, babysitting blues. Baby, baby, babysitting blues.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So today we are starting off 2021 with my first special guest on the show this year. This gentleman, he has done a number of different things. I mean, he's been in The Fox and the Hound, done voice work for that. Was on the Waltons. He did Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. But the film that we're going to be focusing on today is Adventures in Babysitting, one of my favorite 80s classics. Please welcome Brad Anderson himself, Keith Coogan, to the show.
Thank you, Pat. Very good to be here. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for talking about Adventures in Babysitting. I love that movie.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, I recently hadn't seen it in a while, and I just actually watched it with my fiance, and it was just it was crazy to revisit it. And one of the questions that I have for you, we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but just the inclusion of Thor and how relevant that is now today with the whole MCU and everything. But first,
Absolutely.
we'll start things off, kind of from the beginning. 1987, this movie came out. So how did the role of Brad, how did it come about, and what was the audition process like for the character?
Ooh, fall of '86. Several auditions leading to screen tests, and I know Jonathan Ward was there going up for Brad. I know that myself and Anthony Rapp switched. They had to switch Daryl and Brad and play the other character for a subway scene, a version of the subway scene that also had some of the kind of river walk with Monica Devereaux, Chris Columbus's wife. She plays the 17-year-old runaway prostitute.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So you guys actually switched at one point for that scene. You said, well, in the audition.
I can't believe they switched, and then they go, okay, switch back. And it was evident that Brad was more in my wheelhouse. And they had, my goodness, so many completes. Everyone was a star, from Elisabeth Shue to Phoebe Cates, Jamie Gertz, Valerie Bertinelli screen tested, and they shot the doorway scene with Bradley Whitford with So Cool. And so I watched all of the young actresses go through this, and several other, I think there was another Sarah, I believe, but Maya, come on, Maya's absolutely Sarah all the way. And I don't think they screen tested any of the roles outside of the four kids. They may have held casting in Toronto, where two months of the film was shot. Most of it, about 2/3 of the film, was shot in Toronto. And they had amazing casting up there. And a lot of actors suspiciously still at it today on great TV shows and films. And I mean, it is a really deep cast for all the supporting players. And that's, I have to thank casting and Chris Columbus and Deborah Hill, Linda Opes and Jeffrey Katzenberg and Disney for letting me be Brad, because it was this really fun big movie with lots of trucks and lights and cranes and special effects and a great experience with, I'd worked a lot. I'd done a lot of projects and done on and off a lot of shows and guest appearances and movies of the week and after school specials and commercials mostly. I'd done maybe 60, 70 brands and maybe 100 national commercials. And you quickly, because you work really close with people, that it's, fun, but it's kind of, technical or difficult or time consuming or tedious, whatever you want to call it. And you form quick familial bonds because you kind of spend every waking minute with these people.
Yeah.
And then it's over. and then you're working with other people, and then you don't sit in that. Well, you live in a different city. Oh, you're Chicago. Oh, you're New York. I'm LA. Oh, Frisco. That's close. Well, when you come down to LA, it just it was bittersweet in that it was such a great experience and crew and cast. And I'd worked with a few of them. I know there was a director's assistant, assistant director, a second that I wound up working with 10 years later on an independent film. The casting, it was a lot of. Now here's what I did is I had an Apple IIc, which is like an Apple or Apple IIe, whatever the portable one was. It was kind of white and it had a portable 13-inch monitor that was like this deep. And I brought this to the audition and set up video games on there. Like Masquerade, which is like a text and picture adventure, and Larry Bird, and one-on-one, I think. And everyone, swoosh, all the other kids came over and they were playing the game, and my plan worked because I just turned around and opened my sides and focused on the scene that I had to go shoot.
There you go. So were you, I mean, with all the people that sound you were naming that, went for like different roles. I mean, were you intimidated at all, or was it just kind of like normal? Because like you said, you've had done a bunch of like other projects, commercials and stuff like that before.
Would you believe more scared that I would get it?
You were more scared that you would get it?
Yes.
Why was that?
More intimidated of getting something I'd wanted since I was, I don't know, 8 years old, to be in movies, to be on screen in movies. In my family, Fox and the Hound didn't count because my face wasn't on screen. It was just voice only. So This was, this was a, quote, real movie. And what would be a great debut if I could bag this role. But I'd been up for everything. You have to understand this, Pat. And it was hard because you have to be this fun, bright, happy kid. But, you'd gone up for, say, E.T. or Goonies or Gremlins or Stand By Me or Christmas Story or dozens of other films, 16 Candles, Say Anything. Now, there's movies where you go, I know I'm wrong for this part. What I didn't understand was that sometimes they cast down. They'll take 2 lead roles, a male and a female part, and they'll have every actor in town read for those 2 roles. And it's not because they're picturing them in those roles. If they're not right for the leads, they go, where else could we put them if they like your work? So I didn't kind of understand that because I really didn't see myself as a lead. I saw myself as a character. So Adventures in Babysitting was perfect because it was an ensemble piece. As much as, of course, Elisabeth Shue is the lead, it is her story. It's also Sarah's story, and Daryl has a great adventure. Brad gets knocked down a peg and realizes you can't always get what you want.
Yeah, no, and that's crazy. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, but I could totally understand it after going for a number of roles and the life of an actor. I suppose it's like you don't get some, but then you finally get this role with Adventures in Babysitting, which was awesome because it was such a fun film. And you had mentioned this was Chris Columbus's debut film, if I'm correct. So what was your experience like working with him? The biggest takeaway that you had from that experience?
The other lead in the movie, I'm surprised they don't have film of him jumping into the scene with this, because he did during rehearsals. We had 2 weeks of rehearsals in Toronto in December of '86, and then took a little break just for holidays, and then came back hard. I think we started January 3rd. And it was truly an adventure. We're hanging off of huge tow trucks that are full. I mean, these are tow trucks that tow trucks, because on screen a regular tow truck looks puny. So they had to use these heavy rig lift kind of trucks for it to read. It was also the only thing that would fit 5 of us in the cab of the truck. A lot of lap sitting and squished. And we shot a lot of those scenes. I mean, it was a lot of running and night scenes and roof stuff and climbing and getting, close calls. We knew that there were sequences that, I think, what did Chris Columbus quote? and I can't remember who the original filmmaker is. He goes, a movie has to have 3 great scenes and no bad ones. So we tried to make any scene in the script that was like, ooh, we don't believe it, or we're not sure, at least come up to like, all right, we buy it. It could go in the story. It's not something maybe everyone will remember or talk about, but it doesn't stick out as something like, nah, I'm now lose my suspension of disbelief. You kind of want to like kind of believe it as you go. So we focused on, I think, the frat party, the L train sequence, or meeting Thor, of course, and I don't know, some music. Think Babysitting Blues.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you guys, you know, revisiting this movie, it's just like it was crazy watching it, and just like all the different crazy stuff that you guys get into, the situations throughout this film. What would you say was your favorite like scene or favorite, you know, adventure that you guys got into throughout the night in this film?
Oh, I think shooting the L train sequence with the rainbow-colored gangs, which we got notes in the press, some positive, some negative. I don't understand film critics. It's okay. I've gotten very good notes from film critics or totally ignored, and I'd rather it be that way. I don't want to bring the L train because it was in Chicago, and we spent, you know, the 2 weeks of rehearsal, 2 months in Toronto, and then we, you know, had developed a working relationship where everyone kind of knew each other's moves. And we had these big sequences left: the blues bar sequence, the L train sequence, the frat house sequence. And so, and those are the ones you might buy the least when you're reading the script, I think. Does Daryl get murdered at the frat house? They trimmed a little bit at the end of that scene. There was more threats from the big bohunk that was going to murder Anthony as he was hitting on Lolita Davidovich. It's funny that she was making her entrance. This is Lolita David's, one of her film screen debuts, one of her first films. And she thought that her stage name would be better cutting off the Davidovich. So she went with Lolita David as Dumb Blonde. And she's obviously not a blonde, but she's so fantastic in that role. And then later, as she built success, she goes, all right, and she stands firm on Lolita Davidovich. I love those kinds of little things. So the L train, because we shot on a real L train, we shot on the Loop in Chicago, and we'd already known each other, and we were ready to jump onto L trains and shoot. Took a couple days. We had 2 cameras, A and B camera, and we had to do reshoots. It got a little out of focus on a few, and they're like, we have to, at the end of one of our nights, and I can't remember what night, they're like, we have to go back to the L train with just a small crew and just get like one close-up. And so afterwards, a very small crew went back, and it was hard because the train's kind of moving and bucking, and you see us while we're shooting the train. You can't fake that as, 3, 2, 1, everyone pull a Star Trek. That is there's no blue screen when we're even talking. It's hard to record dialogue on a very noisy old train. It wasn't one of the newer trains. So we go back at 3 o'clock in the morning to go film a pickup shot on the L train, and the Department of Transportation, the Chicago, wasn't there, and we'd arranged and we had permits. We were allowed to be there. They just weren't there to open one gate. We could see the train and the thing, and we could get in there and do what we needed. Everything was set up for us, but there wasn't anyone there to let us in. So our stunt coordinator, Rocco Bronchi, who happened to have a lockpick set with him, said he confirmed about 6 times with producer standing there, who, by the way, is, Deborah Hill. Her father is the old man in the ticket booth going, who's going to pay for those kids? Somebody's got to pay for those kids. That's Deborah Hill's father.
That's awesome.
And the small crew broke in to the Chicago on one specific stop on the Loop and got what we needed from the train. It was crazy.
It's funny that you ended up bringing that up, because I was like, I remember hearing that from someone that, supposedly you guys had to like pick the lock and get into to actually like film the scene. So that's funny that actually did happen. That's one of those like really funny like backstories that I always love to hear, if you guys like when like filming and stuff like that, something crazy like that happening.
I think I'm the one that spilled the beans, and I don't think anyone else has spilled the beans on that yet. I think the statute of limitations and international, all that stuff is it's been 30 years. I think 35. Oh my God. Oh, 34 years.
Yeah.
I think they can get over it.
Yeah, it should
I
be
hope.
now.
Yeah, nobody should get in trouble for this. We'll blame it on, well, sorry, we've lost a lot of people. Rick Waite, the director of photography, who shot so many great films, 48 Hours and The Great Outdoors. And he has such a great look for that smoky 80s, Panavision, grainy, beautiful, backlit, balanced, rich blacks, huge faces on screen. And he was really a part of giving it that look. It was storyboarded. The whole movie was storyboarded, but now you have to take these comic book shots and turn them, and put them on the other side of the camera. So I credit Rick Waite with the look of the film.
Yeah, and I was gonna say one of my favorite scenes too, which you briefly mentioned, is just when you guys have to go to the blues bar and you sing the Babysitting Blues. That's a classic scene for sure. Could you just talk a little bit about the filming of that scene as well?
Sure. I wish I remember the music studio. While we're there, Chris Columbus is like, you don't understand who's recorded here. And it was some, legendary music studio, blues studio in Chicago. So it's a Sunday. It's our day off in movie parlance. But we have to record we're going to record the track before we go film it. So, I figured they'll record the track kind of before you even start working on the movie. Here we are just on this day off, and we go in the next day to Fitzgerald's Bar outside of Chicago, where they shot Color of Money, is a great example. It's an oft-used location. And we went in and recorded the song. They also recorded Albert Collins and the Icebreakers recording a bit of music before we come into the club. You can kind of hear them and then we bust out on stage. So they recorded those two pieces. The next day we showed up, and with 3 cameras, 80 background artists, we had, dolly track all along the back just so they could constantly have a nice sliding kind of shot. It took 2 days, 10, maybe 12-hour days to shoot it. And they shot 13,000 feet of film in those 2 days. And most movies cut together at about 11,000 feet of film. And that's why it's really got a great feel, a great cut. A lot of the cuts you feel aren't from different takes, as like Lisa might move from one mic to the other. By the way, all the cool kids could call her Lisa, is what we were told. You'll see it cut to a wider shot, and it's a perfect match, is because it is an exact cut from the same take, just 2 different cameras. And the Fred and Steinkamp, the editors, I wish I could remember both. Father, son, right? Yes. And the old school with the white gloves and the flatbed editor. Cool stuff.
Yeah, and as far as speaking of Elisabeth Shue, your character had a crush on her, in the movie. So, what was your experience like, just working with her?
Devastating. I'm 16 and 17 years old. There's a picture online of us during rehearsals where I'm just like squeezing her. I'm just so thrilled to be working with her. Of course, I had a huge crush on her. So the whole movie was just, a nightmare for me, because I'd wait for her to come out of her trailer and follow her to set like a puppy dog, and there's just going to be no movement there. But, Brad really wanted there to be, so Keith liked to believe that there might be, and it just didn't work out.
Do you have any funny behind the scenes stories from you guys working together or anything?
Oh, I know that during the, and this is another, I'm just going to rat Lisa out, and I think I've seen this online too. They were shooting the frat club scene, and it was a party atmosphere. There's no real beer. It's like near beer, and popcorn for Daryl. But there was a lot of background artists, and they kept them in a basement of the house they were using. The house was not a block away from the hospital. They had set up just a fake hospital sign for us to walk out of and then come near and see. So that's all movie trickery. And they have this nice wide shot as Southside Johnny and the Jukes are playing. And it was take after take for different angles and stuff. And frankly, Elisabeth Shue just wanted to dance, and she couldn't help herself. And Chris Columbus and she's like off to the side, maybe. And Chris Columbus like, you're going to get into a shot, and I can't have you in a shot. So she didn't have a shot coming up. So she went and she changed into sweatpants and a baseball cap. And if you look, there's this one pan when she comes in and looks at the party. There's this pan in dead center. You see Elisabeth Shue kind of hiding her face behind this baseball cap. So, there was also a lot of other crew members in there. The guy that comes out of the bathroom with the Viking horns and likes Sarah's Thor helmet, that was one of our assistant directors.
That's hilarious. So I'm definitely gonna have to go back when I go back and watch it again. I'm gonna have to check to see if I can spot her in one of those scenes for sure. And I mean, this movie, Adventures in Babysitting, it's gone on to become, a classic. Why do you think that this film has, resonated so much with audiences, all these years afterwards?
Wow. Chris Columbus, David Simpkins, Deborah Hill, Linda Obst, the great cast. And I think that we tried to keep it honest when we made it, and thought it could be for audiences, because what's wrong with kind of the truth, and we're talking about kids, so what inherently, and we toned stuff down to this cartoon character like bad guys, although not played cartoon character ish, that it had a bit of danger to it because of the language. I think had a lot to do with it. So they thought PG-13 was new, and a few movies had, used it. Most famously, the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Gremlins, I think, was one of the ones where they asked for it. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think Gremlins was one where a parents group said, no, that scene in the kitchen we can't have that. So, and here we are putting kids in danger again. And I think it was kind of later 80s, 86 when we were making it, that trend was coming to an end, like Space Camp and all those kind of Goonies and Stand By Me, that we kind of explored the adventures with no parents. So here we are doing Adventures in Babysitting. I'm like, all right, is this going to be, it was high concept, but is it going to be seen as and thrown away as a high concept movie? And thankfully, no. The danger part was it's PG-13, but they see little Sarah on there, Maya Bruton, totally used as kid bait, and parents and the kids are like, I want to see that. They ran ads to death. Touchdown bought great ads. They put it in, over 1,000 theaters. It was a good release for a picture of that budget, and healthily promoted, let's say. And then we all went on nationwide tours. We did 12 cities in 9 days. And it was me and Anthony Rapp, Chris Columbus and Maya Bruton, and then Elisabeth Shue on 3 separate tours. And we met up at certain cities and did larger junkets. So this was all prior to and during the opening. And it did well. And then they opened the next weekend. It was like 4th of July weekend, I think. Then they added some theaters. The box office went up. It happens if you add theaters. And it's fun. The language part is the part of the danger where kids feel like they're getting away with something watching the movie. And yes, I've had instances where parents have brought an 8-year-old maybe, and the kid later is just flim, flam, flam, flam. That, people were disappointed in not warning you. I'm like, there's a rating thing, whatever. It's not the law. You're the one that took your kid there.
Yeah.
But it is, and a cable staple. It wound up playing on cable all the time, and it is, even with me in it, and I have seen it. If I'm flipping around, it's part of those movies that I'll stop. I'll stop on Don't Tell on the Babysitters. I'll stop on Breakfast Club or 16 Candles. Say Anything. I'll stop on Meatballs. I'll like, oh, no, I know what I'm doing for the next. Oh, there's 82 minutes left. Let's watch it. So I think that's why.
Yeah, no, I have those films too. Even though I own a ton of movies, I'm definitely a physical media guy. I love streaming and everything, but I definitely love the physical media. But even though I own a bunch of these movies, if something comes on, a lot of times, especially like the Halloween season and stuff like that, if it's like on TV, I'll take time to like watch it on TV. It's like, even though I could just pop it in like the Blu-ray player or whatever. So there's only like certain films that you really do that. Most of the time it's like, whatever, like I can just like watch it whenever I want. But out of like the main cast, we talked a little bit about like Elisabeth Shue, and who did you like really connect with the most?
Oh God, who didn't we? There was so much love on the set for Calvin Levels and John Ford Noonan and Brad Whitford. He had the worst part to play, and he just seemed to have so much fun doing it. I love the look in his eye while they're rolling, and he goes, "Don't worry about it, Squirt. Her legs are locked together at the knees," and he's just so slimy. I love it. Oh, my line. So there's parts where you don't have to act. That's those are my fun parts too. And then watching it, I do forget the little things that might not have made it on screen. Little trims, just walking into a building, or the order of something slightly, or a line that was cut out, and you're like, oh yeah, I do remember there was something else there. But it's been so many years, and I'm starting to forget that. And the movie as exists is now as it exists. I can't really remember the order we shot things in anymore. But I'm also 51, so.
And as far as, do you still keep in like contact with like the different people from like the movie, or has it been like a while?
I do. Lisa Shue is hard to pin down. She's so busy, and in New York. So that's right there. You got, I'm a West Coast guy, but I love her dearly. Anthony, I've seen him a couple of times, and usually he's performing at the Pantages in Los Angeles in If Then or something. And the thing about Anthony is I knew that he was very driven and talented from when we met. By the time we got to Chicago, after 2 months of working with him, and then he's got zero hesitancy about working on a set or being on film. Not that he had any beforehand, but the amount of confidence after 2 months of being able to take your kind of theater and your training and some film. He did, I think he had film and television. After 2 months, he comes back to his hometown. He came from Joliet. So we hit Chicago, and he's just, ready to clip. We had another like 2 or 3 weeks of a lot of key stuff, especially for Daryl. This is weird. You're weird, Daryl. It's funny. The thing about Anthony is he's not like Daryl at all, and that's what makes a great actor, is someone who can kind of make buy the character so much. And he had to play someone that's Eddie Haskell-ish, in that you kind of love and hate him at the same time. So I love Anthony. And Maya, I just saw Maya recently, well, not 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. We had a screening at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, California, and David Simpkins was there with Maya Bruton and myself, and we did a Q&A after screening of the film.
There you go. That's
awesome. Really good to see her. It felt like zero time had passed. I'd seen her maybe once or twice since, more close to when the movie came out, and just absolutely amazing.
It's always so good when especially if it's been a few years or whatever, but when you can connect with these guys and it feels like time has passed. That you guys had a really good connection when you guys were filming like the movie. So I mean that's awesome. What we went over like a couple of the scenes, like what was your favorite and stuff like that, but as in the film, because there's a lot of crazy scenes and stuff like that, what was the most like challenging to film?
So challenging would be keeping it all straight. You have to kind of make notes in your script from beginning to end. You start here and he's mad here, or he's wants this because of this last scene, or kind of where'd you just come from and where are you going to go to next? Because you got to set yourself up. If there's stuff in the script that you have to set yourself up, but you're going to shoot it out of sequence. So I think there's a moment when we come out after kicking Daryl where we shot like leaving the restaurant before we shot the scene with kicking Daryl. And in the original scene as written, we punched Daryl. And I think we said, you punched him or something like that. And they had to redo the line, can't believe you did it, or something like, it's different, because they had to cover for the fact that we shot it out of order and what we shot was different. And we'd reference, it's kind of like the octopus in Goonies. And we fought this big octopus? No, you didn't. I saw no octopus in Goonies.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
can imagine that's challenging trying to keep it, in straight and order.
yeah, and then the car scenes. So the car scenes, because it's hard to record dialogue in cars, they only when they really needed to get a more subtle, quieter line in a really tight close up that's not really shaking because of the road. You mostly it was shot in with a shot maker in a tow rig and locked off, cameras that are anchored into the car, and so they dragged us around for weeks. Weeks we got dragged around in cars, station wagon, tow trucks. Dan, what's his face's Jeep, his Samurai Suzuki, or whatever the heck that was. I don't know. So it's just so many car scenes, and yeah, I know it was. I think it was snowing. Yeah, it was snowing, and we were trapped in the back. And after so many hours, because you're trying to just get through as much as you can, because you can only do one take of one angle at a time. And these dialogue scenes are 3-4 pages long. We're like, oh, I'm sure Chris Columbus is like, never write long car scenes again. Poor guy. He's on like exotic locations and working with kids.
I'm sure that was
At least he didn't have to do the cheetah, which add the exotic animals, foreign locations, exotic animals, and children. So it was having to go to the bathroom and still get a shot off or two left. Meanwhile, you're developing a urinary tract infection. That was fun. Bladder infection. I don't know. I'm a filthy child.
Especially those like specific like scenes, and it's just like one of those things, especially as a kid. It's like I remember like going on vacations and stuff like that. It's like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? So I imagine it kind of the same thing applies to this situation, especially where you're trying to film these couple of scenes and get the lines right and everything. So
it's the one thing that baffles me. So many of the lines have changed in reaction over the years, how people react. Most of the time, people have picked up on something written or a quote that people like, and it's now gotten more laughs when people watch it. But the one that gets me is the I gotta make. It doesn't get a laugh anymore. And I think it's because kids don't use that vernacular to talk about going to the bathroom. I gotta make. Gotta what? I gotta go to the bathroom. But it used to get a great laugh because of Sarah's timing. Maya goes, Chris, it's important. What? I gotta make. Laugh. It was huge when the movie came out, and now I don't think the kids quite understand that first beat. And then she's like, oh yeah, bathroom, we gotta go in. And then she's sitting there struggling. But that was us in the back of those cars.
Yeah, I know, and that makes sense. I mean, because just that kind of stuff, it changes the language and lingo and stuff like that. So, but I mean, that is funny how like back then it was a much bigger laugh, and now it's like, oh, what did you say? Like it kind of just goes over everyone's like head. Kind of tying into that, the past, especially like the past like several years, we've seen such a huge resurgence as far as like 80s and 90s like nostalgia. What are your thoughts on that whole like phase like right now?
Oh, that's fantastic. Hollywood's been ripping itself off since Cecil B. DeMille just kept remaking his own movies every 2 to 4 years when a new technology came out. My theory is that there's only 23 stories and Shakespeare wrote them all, and there's no one's going to come up with anything new under the sun. So if you can turn to a current intellectual property under ownership of the movie studio and refresh it, renewing the intellectual property copyright and finding new fans that might have heard about it from their parents or peers or something like that, why not? I do have an opinion on trying to include the cast of the original in or reference or something. Let them know either we know it's in the same universe or we know it's not. There's been some projects I think that have come out where audiences weren't clear whether it is, but cameos. So I'm always bucking for a day rate from SAG. It's healthy now and it pays health insurance. So yes, I always would love to reprise any role or play a different role in something that was remade.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say, like, kind of tying into that. What were your thoughts on the remake that they had a couple of years ago?
Oh, it was great. It was I don't know, could you call it a reboot? reimagined
it's like a
because they referenced, Dawson Garage pretty healthily. It's the Parkers and the Andersons, but it doesn't feel like it's the same. And it's Daryl Cooper instead of Cooper Smith. So I think that it's the same feel. It's a new generation. Let's make it two girls. And I love the phone switching stuff. It's the head of the Disney Channel had an 8-year-old girl and he loves Adventures in Babysitting, but he could not show her Adventures in Babysitting unless it was like the TV edit. Even then, he was kind of like, I don't know, man, there's some intense parts. The girl hanging off the building. How do you cut out the whole third act? So they made a G-rated version for Disney Channel, original movie. It is the 100th Disney Channel original movie. I went to the premiere, got in front of those kids on the red carpet. Half of them were like, who's that? The other half were like, my mom loves you. One of them was like, I had to watch the original to do research, and I just watched it out there. Those kids were amazing. They showed me lots of love and welcomed me into their premiere. And I think the kids love it. And so, a lot of the kids had seen the original. Some maybe hadn't. When they get old enough, they can see the original, but I love it.
No, I think that, it is cool when you do have like a remake. Sometimes people, seeing the originals, they don't like the remake as much, but it is cool because I think for you guys, it allows a new generation of fans to, possibly discover like the original film as well. So even if, if they're not as big a fan of like the remake or, reboot or whatever, they can sometimes go see that like original, like, that film as well. So I think, that's cool. Now, as far as like the original Adventures in Babysitting, and it's kind of interesting. I actually didn't realize that was the 100th DCOM, because I know like me, like growing up, I used to love like watching all like the Disney Channel original movies, like the ones. So I didn't realize that was the 100th DCOM. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. They had cast from all of their Disney Channel original movies at the Directors Guild for this premiere for Adventures in Babysitting, the Disney Channel original movie. And that was something to see all of those cast members intermingle and talk to each other.
Yeah, no, it's crazy just to think it's like they did 100 of these things. So I can't imagine like all the different people, different generations, stuff like that. So that's awesome.
I was like, why are there so many twins here? I don't understand. It was great.
Thing for twins for sure. As far as the original, the original movie, I just feel like, we've talked about how it's just such like a kind of a crazy, like, wacky film, a lot of the different stuff that you guys get into. I feel like we don't really get a lot of comedies like this anymore, just with it just so out there and like different. Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I think Chris Columbus, had knowledge and love of films like Sullivan's Travels and what's the Baby, Bringing Up Baby, Day at the Races, or Arsenic and Old Lace. I think that he has a twisted, dark kind of sense of humor. Take the Phoebe Cates speech in Gremlins.
Yep.
There's a lot of mystery, and in his direction in Harry Potter, he did something almost impossible in bringing those books to life and not having them, but the film prints burned by all of the fans of the books. There was maybe too much of a built-in audience. So when you go to put something on screen, they're like cement everyone's a million billion kids' personal images. That's whew. But he did it, and all of his films have such a heart. So
yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. The thing I feel like lately, it seems like specifically with comedies, like to a degree, maybe more so with like the ones that are kind of like on the verge of, they're for kids, families, but they're kind of like on the line of almost going to like that next level. I just feel like a lot of studios maybe, they play it a little safe because like some of the stuff, it's like, oh, we might not be able to like do that today. So that's like one of those things. It's like we just, specifically in comedies, I feel like I noticed that we just don't get a lot of these like movies where a bunch of kids just go out into the middle of the city and you guys, go in trucks driving across the city, you go into like a bar and start singing. You just don't get movies, like that really anymore. It's kind of sad because it's like these things are, they're timeless now, and it's like I feel like a lot of comedies now sometimes can be a little like forgetful.
Yeah, but you also got to find that you can only kind of milk that idea, milk money, blank check. You can only like milk certain ideas so much before you get derivative, and then you start to cross lines that maybe you shouldn't cross, or maybe someone's doing a satire on something, but people don't understand it is, and they kind of follow along from the original genre. Look, times change, and the performers, the generation of performers that create a lot of entertainment change. The studio heads change, audiences change, and everything. But the basics, I think, is I like to, at least when I act, is if an audience is watching and in their mind they laugh at something because they go, "Oh, I do that too," or "I would do that." Isn't that funny? Or they're laughing I don't mind them laughing at a character at all. But I think it's got to be relatable that they go, "That's funny because I do that." How do they know? Kind of get out of my head.
Yeah.
Situation. And I do that because I try to crawl into the head of the character and open up to being not me. And so as long as I think characters are relatable, yes, a lot of the trends, I still see callbacks to jokes that have been done since silent film, rhythm, sight gags. I still see, the earliest dialogue stuff, references that have now folded in on themselves so much, people have forgotten the root reference, and actors that are now, brought up on a very improvisatory nature and a school of improv, which is great because it creates great presence to be right there, and that charisma comes through. My challenge is sticking to story when you're improving, so I can't keep them in a box. So if I have to go in there and you want me to improv, God knows it better be somewhere early in the second act so we can write our way out of it. Is all I know.
And one of the crazy things that that with Adventures in Babysitting, it never, we got like the reboot, like a few like years ago, but it never got like an official sequel. And it's almost one of those movies, like watching it like again too. It's just like it's one of those movies that you almost thought that it would have been one of those films that got like some kind of like sequel. Was there? Do you remember hearing about like any kind of like talks about doing like a second film, like maybe any of your characters coming back?
I don't think so. I don't think an even attempt was made to like break story on something like that. How do you do it without repeating it? Honestly, it was situational. They've all come of age and learned those lessons. And for those particular characters, I don't know another movie learning slightly different lessons that maybe, I don't know. They'd be a different developmental stage in their lives too.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's just like one of those films that I could have, like, even though I totally agree with that, you don't want to like, maybe repeat certain things, especially like in like comedies, because it can get old. But it's just like, Hollywood, a lot of times it's like if it's like a film is a success, it's like, yep, we're definitely going to go ahead and make a sequel to that film because it did, it did well. So, but there wasn't, it sounds like you said there wasn't really any kind of talks of any sequel or anything like that.
No, I mean, we made it at a time where Ernest might have been on his fourth movie. I don't know. Sequels weren't thought of as something as money making, as liked by audiences. Ghostbusters 2, Stakeout 2, Mannequin 2, Weekend at Bernie's. Actually, that holds up. Weekend at Bernie's 2 holds up. You know what I mean? It's hard to really tap into the original magic from a film. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And we kind of mentioned it like earlier on. It's funny now to watch this film again, especially with the whole fascination with with Thor, because like back then a lot of people, unless you were like really, I feel like a hardcore kind of like comic book fan, people weren't as familiar with the character, and now it has a whole different light on it. And actually I think I saw or read or something that originally it was going to be like He-Man instead of Thor, and they ended up going with Thor instead, I think because Chris Columbus like the character. So just what are your whole thoughts on that thing, especially with the MCU now and how big that is?
Oh, it's great because it doesn't make it an audience. You don't have to love Fonzie to get the character loving Fonzie. So if Fonzie is really popular, but someone doesn't really know Fonzie or like him that much, all of a sudden you discluded audience. How better to pick something that might not be Spider-Man or Superman? Genius. Was the licensing less expensive? I don't know. I think I literally heard the quote, well, we're not doing anything with Thor. You want Thor? He's cheap. I'm just kidding. I'm totally just, how adults talk around kids and kids misinterpret. I think that's what happened. So, and also, let's not push a toy because Thor, He-Man was made to be a toy. The cartoon was made to sell a toy. Whereas Thor, perfect thematically, and we needed a big superhero like Thor that can rescue us. The earned, is it a Deus Machina? Yeah, pretty much. He does give us the car. Is it earned? Right there. It wasn't earned early. It was set up early.
Yeah.
But she didn't remove the, thorn from the tiger's paw in the first few scenes. But her devotion and love for him melted his little heart. And that is it works because Vincent D'Onofrio is an amazing actor.
Yeah.
Maya was on point. The scene is sweet as hell and works. It's funny and just works. And then to see the Thor and Marvel happen again. Chris Hemsworth, fantastic Thor. Did you see Jay and Silent Bob reboot?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so not Adventures in Babysitting related necessarily, but he does quote, "Don't tell Mom the babysitter's dead," and I'm Kenny from. So is that somehow circularly referencing a nod of going, we know where Thor and the Keith Coogan might triangulate in there? So I lost my mind to have Chris Hemsworth go, "Dishes are done, man." And I really want to push for the babysitter to be a Marvel character. Normal going to school and stuff. She's just a normal everyday girl who likes camel hair coats and Doctor Who scarves and brooches and witchy poo boots. But whenever children come under her care, she rolls a 20 on charisma, luck, stamina, fortitude, strength, dexterity, and she can get out of situations, a lot of luck. And so I actually picture the cover art of her and two children behind her, and she's on a small piece of a comet, just, little piece that there's still remnant on in space. And it says, you see like the presence of a huge, huge evil ancient being. And it's like, oh no, it's the babysitter. I don't know. This is my image for Marvel to take the babysitter and make her part of canon.
Kevin Feige, we gotta make this happen. We gotta include her in phase 5 or phase 6. I know they're already working on like phase 4, but we gotta make that happen. I actually joked. It's funny.
Phase Thor.
Yeah, it's funny that
is the one thing I'll tell you on Eventually Babysitting. When we were making it, we tried to get it in 2 or 3 takes if we could. But sometimes you go to 4th or 5th take, whatever, if there's something technical or you just, you're having problems or have giggles. So it would be rare when we get to the 4th take. So our script supervisor, Sue Richards, whenever we got to that, she'd go, you always say like 2 is up or 3 is up. And she would say, Thor is up.
Oh,
all right, scene 92, take Thor, click. So that's a little note on what happened on the set.
My fiance would appreciate that. She loves like the puns like that. And we were joking and saying how, maybe if we go back and watch, Avengers Endgame have you seen Endgame? Are you a big fan of that? Okay. Just the end of the movie where you have like all the characters coming back. And obviously he's not in the film, but just seeing the other Thor with all the Avengers, come in, just be like a fun little cameo. Obviously didn't happen, but it was just, something that I was like, that would be, super funny.
I forgot what I was watching and it was on movies. Kermode? No. He said, Fat Thor. That's great because then it opens up cosplay for a lot more people. I thought that was hysterical
Yep.
because I
Yeah.
did see some of the best Fat Thor cosplays at conventions.
Yeah. No, I say I do remember seeing that too. So it's just one of those things. It would be funny if they yeah did something in like one of the like future like Marvel films, or now they're doing TV shows, maybe even something like that. Um, Earlier too, you mentioned that this was your big on-screen debut. What was just the transition like as far as coming from commercials and doing voice work and stuff like that to going to like a big feature film like this?
And it was a lot of TV too, guest appearances on like Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, and Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Love Chips, and Maybe It Is Enough, and God knows everything. Silver Spoons, Growing Pains, Just the 10 of Us, Walton's, Little House, Knight Rider. The TV was it. What you This is pre Moonlighting and Bruce Willis. So in Hollywood, you were TV or you were film, and I had trouble getting cast in film because casting director said he's too TV. I learned how to mug and ham from my grandfather, who learned from vaudeville and from Chaplin. So maybe I didn't have the 70s real, authentic film actor kind of chops. So I kind of learned those from just working with a lot of actors and how to kind of fake it. Bring it down a little bit. I don't know. I never really learned to bring it down. I like comedy. So when I moved into the features, I noticed the television on my resume kind of stopped, and I just exclusively did features. And then as television kind of came up and featured, what I did in features for independent films and surf movies and ninja movies and snake movies and stuff that might not have had a Warner Brothers or a Paramount or a Disney behind it, they started to merge. And at one point I said, "Oh, I'm doing a web series." And someone goes, "Oh, really? What's that? How do you watch that? Is it on TV?" No. Kind of how podcasts were looked at. Was it radio? Well, it's kind of radio. It's not terrestrial radio, but so it's a podcast? No, it's radio. It's kind of hard to explain web series early on, and now that it's completely different, and the art pieces find their way to the most appropriate medium. And now we've kind of removed, at least from the States and a lot of the LA, New York mostly, the chance to go into a movie theater and see a film in a movie. That's taken away 90% of most movies' box office. Yes, films are seen in 47 states in theaters, but it's just not the numbers that Los Angeles and New York. As soon as they can open up movie theaters in New York and LA, even at 25% capacity, you're going to see films released back to theaters again that are, a picture kind of things. That Marvel's Endgame experience.
Yeah. No, luckily around like I'm here in New Hampshire, and luckily we still have like some theaters that are are open and stuff like that. It's being such a big big like movie guy. I remember when it was like everything was like shut down, and obviously there's bigger things like going on besides like movies. But for someone who's so passionate about that stuff, it was just like, because I usually go to the movies. It's like every week or like every other week, going to see like a movie, doing like a review. So just not being able to do that, not having any new content, it was definitely, it was weird. It's just like, it just throws you, completely off from where you.
And I'll note this, that during the beginnings of kind of lockdown and quarantine and pandemic, March, April, as people were staying home and firing up their Hulus and Netflixes and Amazon Primes, that they had to dig deep into the catalog, because they're, that disconnect between the big movies kind of make that content starts to dry up. New television isn't being shot. And I have to admit that I got a lot of responses of people like digging deep and watching Hiding Out or Book of Love or Cousins or, Under the Boardwalk, Adventures in Babysitting, Toy Soldiers, Don't Tell Mom, Fox and the Hound. Mashed potatoes, it was a comfort food for people when stuff was getting really squirrely.
Yeah, so I think almost in a way, in other ways too, it's like a blessing in disguise, because like you said, we might not have been getting new content, but in a way, some of these people are able to discover some of these, these movies that they weren't around when they like came out. They didn't get a chance to see them, so they're discovering them for the first time. So that's pretty cool. I know, like myself, I actually did kind of the same thing when there was like nothing coming out. I was going through and like, hey, you know what? I've never seen this movie before. Let me check it out. It's not like, there's anything else, coming out. So let me see what it's all about. And some of those movies, it's like, how did I go this long without seeing this film?
Right. Oh my gosh, I was on cable watching. It's a Pierce Brosnan one. I don't know if it was is it November Man? There were two. There was one. There were two. One was bad and one was really good. But I found them, and I don't know if they had a big theatrical release. They were really pretty current, and I went, "Let me watch this." So the first one I watched was it was one of the best suspense thrillers I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
I was like, "This is great," and it was like, never heard of it. So yeah, dig deep. I was watching Heist the other day with Hackman, and I went, Heist. I kept watching and going, "When's something gonna happen? Oh, that's interesting. That's a twist. When's something? Oh my god!" And then the further and further it went, I just kept getting more and more on the edge of my seat. That one is a great potboiler.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I've discovered, or just rediscovered films too that I hadn't seen like in a while. So that's been, even though we didn't get new releases, that was fun, just being able to.
There's always more movies. I'm a videophile, and I know. I mean, it took me years after knowing about like Treasure of Sierra Madre before I even watched it, decades ago. But you and I both know that there are thousands of films that are in the Library of Congress that we haven't even seen.
Yeah.
So it is a good time to dig deep. I like Serpico for some reason. Never saw Serpico.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I mean, there's like an endless, amount. I mean, not exactly, but there's a ton of movie.
And one of the funnest things about doing that is spotting actors in their earliest part of their careers in little small roles or background artists. You're like, we're watching Old Saturday Night Live and we're watching, and I'm looking in the back and I see Conan, and he was probably one of the writers that year, but he wasn't in the regular thing. He never really had a line. Yep. He's just filling out the background, which the writers do on SNL. So that's always fun to watch in older movies. Look for known actors before they hit it big.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're just like, oh, wow, like you know them from something, one of their other projects, and it's just like, holy crap, like this must have been one of their like earlier roles, and sure enough it is. So as far as kind of just starting to wrap things up, I mean, as far as Adventures in Babysitting just as a whole, what was your biggest thing that you take away from just working on that film, just that experience as a whole?
Wow. How unique and lucky I was to be a part of it. How rare it is to be on a set like that, to have a role in a film like that. It's funny. It was Curtis Armstrong. Am I getting that right? Booger.
Yeah.
He'll freely admit, just call me Booger. I think that's his book. Just call me Booger. And we saw him speaking in a book signing, and Curtis said that somebody asked him, so what does it take to be an actor? And he said, flippantly, don't. But then he goes, all right, I'll tell you. He goes, luck. And he said he'd heard this quote from someone else too. He said, there's two kinds of luck, two layers of luck. There's luck of getting a job and getting on a project and staying on it. One luck, just to get a job in a movie is one layer of luck. The next layer is that something that will still be loved years on down the line? Is it something that people remember? Did it do okay? You can even flop, and there's so many movies that flop that today I'm like, Heaven's Gate is obviously a masterpiece. Like, why are people even discussing that it's literally one of the best films ever made? Once Upon a Time in America, truly genius film, but it's a slog to work through 4 hours of the original cut. And also, that's what I love about the digital and scanning old negatives and giving directors an opportunity to finesse movies. I know there's resistance with George Lucas tinkering with Star Wars. God forbid Spielberg goes back and does, well, he already did it to E.T. He removed the damn guns. But if he touches Jaws, not going to say anything that's going to get me in trouble with the authorities.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you there.
Raiders, if he removes the little reflection from the snake, I am coming for him. I will throw him in the well of the souls.
Yeah, you just some of those things, there's certain films, certain things you just don't touch, you don't do. So yeah. I don't blame you on that. Well, as far as, just to kind of to wrap things up, is there anything else that you want to say to, all the fans out there?
Nobody leaves this place without singing the blues.
That's a good way to end it. Well, thank you again, Keith. I mean, it's been so much fun, getting to, like I said, I just, recently revisited, the film, so it's been a lot of fun just to kind of get your perspective, get some of the stories, look on the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So thank you
Did
again.
you enjoy watching it?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Did it? There's obviously there's language in it that is not allowed today, and there's also language that are classic 7 words you can never say on television that I'm surprised we got away with. Listen to the bitch, Brad. I'm like, what? Did we just say bitch? In a kids movie. Yeah, pussy, Brad. I don't know. There's so many bad words in that. Wow. That it changed over time and stuff like that. How was your reaction as you were watching it, to the language or the time or anything like that?
Well, I remember, yeah, like the watching it, especially the the subway scene, like the first time, seeing that, and he goes, "Don't fuck with the gangs. I'm gonna screw up the line there."
The
But
Lords of Hell.
yeah, the Lord of Hell. And then she turns around and says, "Don't fuck with the babysitter." I remember just like the first, watching that and being like, "What?" Like for, especially for like, kind of like a kid's like family movie. So that really threw me off like the first time watching it.
Yeah, it has a feeling there because of the film grain and the exposure. It feels like a shot in the 70s on fast Kodak film on a handheld. It feels like one of those Cimino, De Palma. There's like something about it that has a rawness to, because Elisabeth just brung it. She brought it. She broadened it. It obviously is like my favorite non G-rated quote from the movie. Nobody leaves this place without singing the blues is a great piece of writing, but the don't fuck with the babysitter, that just, distills that mother hen, that protective nature of her at that point. She goes, I will stab these gang members. And that was the toughest scene that we go, when we're writing and we go, are they going to believe that a girl with a little 3-inch knife is, going to take on 30, 40 gang members? And I'm like, yeah, you believe it the way that she delivers that line.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I would say, like no one leaves here without singing the blues. It is classic, but that scene, I remember just watching that and just being like, wow. But I guess the saying or whatever is that PG-13. I don't know so much like back then, but like now it's like PG-13 films. You get one F-bomb, and then if you go like past that, then you're going into like R-rated like territory. So
Yeah, they argued heavily that a few things. They argued that there's no violence, there's no nudity. They go, okay, no, we got that. There's kids in danger. They go, yeah, it's kind of cartoonish danger. It'll have like a fun cartoonish orchestra because the orchestration is fantastic and has that kind of Bugs Bunny feel to it. It's the orchestration is every look, every eyebrow, every gesture has a little great orchestration back there. That they argued, here's their argument, was that it's one instance of one moment of the word that both fucks are part of one comic beat. It's a setup and a payoff. Fuck with Lords of Hell, don't fuck with the babysitter. You can't have one without the other. The first one would be useless without the payoff, and the payoff wouldn't mean anything with the first one. And they caved. And they said, also, if you notice, she kind of pronounces it fuck.
yeah,
Don't fuck with God. I don't know why. Maybe it was just that take. It was her rage with the knife in her hand, but it kind of is true.
yeah.
And I think I heard that they had to work with the MPAA quite a bit to get that PG-13, because there's like 5, 6, 7 shits.
Yeah.
There's aforementioned bitch. Thor's a homo. I mean, we've got. Now I wonder how it would be rated today. Probably just PG.
Yeah, no, but yeah, that's funny that you say that. Just that they had to kind of argue it, and you don't think of it, watching like the film. At least I didn't right away, but like you saying that the pronunciation of the word as well. So
yeah, and you're fighting for all of the 13 to 17-year-olds that watch the movie a few times in the theaters. They didn't really take their parents to. You didn't get the double ticket because parents went and saw something else and dropped their kids off of Adventures in Babysitting. But then it came out on video, and I have fans that say, "Oh, we go to the video store every weekend and pretend to look around, and then eventually just rent Adventures in Babysitting again." And their parents would comment, "How many times are you going to rent that freaking movie?" Till the tape wore out. Fans say they kept it and were charged the $89 from. They're like, "Never using that video store again, but I'm keeping this tape." So I love that kind of the really love that some of the fans have had for that film.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, like I said, I mean, it's gone on to become like a classic. It just has, you know, that feel. It's one of those feel good, you know, movies where it's like you can just sit down and just really enjoy it. It's not something that's like, you know, like super, like it has like themes and stuff like that, and the kids like learn these lessons, but it's something where you can just sit down and just really enjoy these kids having this wacky, crazy adventure throughout, like, you know, the city and stuff like that. So
And it's funny, at the time they really pinned on the suburb urban thing, on the black inner city people and the white kids, and it's pretty. We went through efforts to make it, you know, heavies mixed and rainbow gangs and all that stuff. The Blues Bar had to be all black cast for the background actors for the Blues Bar sequence, so the joke doesn't work. I think the kids' fears were what was happening in the media at the time of the 80s, white flight and suburbia, and that fear of the city. But ultimately, over the years, the more that I've watched it, the more that I've grown up, and the more that I clued into what Chris Columbus and David Simpkins, I think, and from their references from Arsenic and Old Lace and Day at the Races or Horse Feathers, is that it's not, the struggle is more about regular kids going in and everyone in the city is crazy. That's all. It's not about race. It's not about poor and rich. It's this or that, or experience or growing. It is that everyone in there is nuts. They're absolutely insane. Every adult we run into is crazy. So I think that's part of the fun, is you actually kind of are very happy that they get home safe by the end of the movie.
yeah, no, seeing some of the stuff, it's like you're surprised that they were able to make it home in one piece after going through all the crazy shenanigans that you guys, like, you know, got into in that film. But yeah, I mean, thank you again, Keith. Like I said, it's been so much fun just revisiting, you know, going through all these different memories and stuff like that with you. Really appreciate, you know, you taking time out of your schedule to come on the show.
You as well, Pat. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the interview and the love for Adventures in Babysitting. I really appreciate it.
Again, guys, make sure, you know, if you are new to the channel, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Like and comment, you know, on this video. Tell Keith, you know, how much you love Adventures in Babysitting, and have a good rest of your night, guys.
Hi, this is Keith Coogan. You may remember me as Brad Anderson from Adventures in Babysitting, and you are listening to Pop Culture with Pat. Nobody leaves this place without singing the blues.
That's right.